So two things. First, if you saw the tech review of the Veloster N, you know, didn't really expect to take a Hyundai ever on a racetrack. Well, we're about to do that. But before we do, a little bit behind the scenes, I just had a long discussion with Albert Bierman, the guy behind the whole N thing, and really every performance car or sort of performance car in the Hyundai Kia empire. And I can't believe this, but the first ever M car that I ever had was a Z3M. Turns out he built it. So I guess life, it's a one big circle, brings you back home. But in this case, it's really very blue and there is a roof and a back seat, but still, it's a performance car and we're gonna take it on a racetrack. So before I go out, I'm gonna use these guys as guinea pigs here to see if this thing can go on a very technical track like Thunderhill. This is not like plug and play here. This is elevation changes, turns, dips, this is a long track as well. So long it has its own power supply with wind power. Here we go. Thunderhill, all 3 miles of it, just for you and I, nobody else. So a couple of side notes here before we get into the actual car. This is an incredibly technical track. This is why you leave some change in your pocket. I'm going to show you the first point why you do that. Completely blind here. Come over this and look at this. Immediately to the right. Otherwise, you go into the wind farm there. That would not be a good day at the office. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's come around this turn here. Another elevation change, put our foot into it, and guess what? Another blind turn. And what you notice immediately when you put your foot into this thing is it is not a normal Hyundai. But now as we get to more outside, backside of the track, let's push a little harder. We got a nice elevation change here. Let's understand what's going on. 3,036 pounds, straight uphill on Thunderhill. Good amount of pulling power. It doesn't pull like a freight train, but it's God, man, this thing will definitely run with GTIs. It'll be a great car to take on a track. The engine it delivers power in a linear way. That's what's different here over that 1.6 turbo. And it's not the size difference, it's all of the changes to the engine. Dr. Bierman spent a lot of time focusing on, can it be usable during the day? Like, can we get down here at, say, what do we got, 4,000 RPM? But then, let's say for the sake of discussion, I want to pass somebody on a freeway. You've got some power, but then way up here, 6,500 RPM, you'd expect the power to kind of fall off. But I'm strong in the 5,000 RPM range. This is the difference between something that was designed to go on a track or really use as a weekend car as opposed to something that's fuel efficient but fun to drive. I take my hat off to the guys at Hyundai and this engine. It really is quite a marvel. Especially, this is their freshman effort and it's completely usable. Like, just a note here, you're confident in your product if you're letting morons like me on a track like this. They could have done this at, I'll make it up, a small like motorsports park, one of those country club things like, you know, M1 in Michigan. They could have done this there, but they're sending a message. No, we're confident in our car. I don't know about you, but we're confident in our car. In the tech review, we discussed some of the differences between a Veloster R-Spec and a Veloster N, specifically driving dynamics. Now, there's one bit I kind of glossed over by design because, well, it has a huge impact outside of the output of the engine, and that's the limited slip differential. Now, you may remember in the SL63 episode a couple of years ago, I got very excited about that car because it had like an old school mechanical diff like your grandfather's Oldsmobile had. Well, apparently someone from Hyundai was paying attention to that episode because the Veloster N has an old school mechanical diff, and that's in the performance package, not in the basic one. And this has an impact from a couple of areas. Number one, it's an old school mechanical diff. And number two, you know, we talk about like torque vectoring, especially in Porsche torque vectoring plus, what they call it. Well, that is a mechanical system. It's an expensive car. Most like Hyundais, Kias, they also have torque vectoring because it's more of a safety thing, but that's brake actuated. So like the inside brake, it will like tap the brakes so it has some control over the stability of the vehicle. In the N with the performance package, that's done mainly through the mechanical diff, and in the rear wheels, it's still just a bit of the brakes, but as opposed to the basic non-performance model, it's still a torque vectoring system that uses the brakes. Get it? So performance pack, not just 25 extra horsepower, you get some German Oldsmobile old school bits. Now let's screw with this limited slip differential business, because remember, it's got torque vectoring, but half of it's mechanical up front, brake actuated in the back. And what you're noticing is it's got a more natural feel when you try to like here, downshift, tight turn here. This is where the limited slip's really going to pay off. And you know, like I told Craig Cole recently, technology, when it's good, you don't notice it. That's the difference when you have a mechanical limited slip with all the nannies on top of it, giving you enough leeway to control the car. Like, there's virtually no computer that's getting in the way here, and that's the benefit of going kind of old school and augmenting it with newer technology. So at the end of the tech review, I posed the question and tried to be humorous about the size of the wing here. I think these are odd because at the end of the day, this is a front-wheel drive car, and the entire purpose of a wing is to create more downforce for the drive wheels. These are not the drive wheels. However, in talking to some of the engineers, there is some function here, and the reality is there's double the downforce in the back of the car than in the front of the car due to the design and construction of this wing. Okay, as we come off one of these elevation changes, let's understand driving dynamics. So full disclosure, this car is a performance package car that we're driving. Limited slip differential, it's got the bigger brakes, and even more so, it's got the accessory brake pad. So this is not going to be completely indicative of the car that would come out of a dealership. Well, it could if you bought the accessory pads. Anyway, here's a great opportunity to do some technical work with the brakes, push it a little hard down here. I would say don't try it at home, but it's a racetrack, so yeah, try it at home. Downshift, scrub some speed off, come around the turn here. I've been beating the crap out of this thing for, I'd say, a solid half an hour straight. And the brakes, fade free? Yeah. Is it like a McLaren with carbon ceramic rotors? No, but when you consider this is, the car we're driving right now is 30 grand. And the brakes stand up to the punishment of a track like this, and you notice I'm not going easy on this thing. Impressive what the brakes can do. And remember, this isn't some outside manufacturer making these like Brembo. Dr. Bierman and his team created this internally with the concept of you're going to take this car to the track on the weekends. Remember this from the beginning of the tech review? I couldn't leave well enough alone. These are my unicorn, man. They're not perfect, but they are perfect. I've always wanted one. I've been trying to buy one for the past like 3 years. I've got skunked on practically every online auction, local sale. There is a story I'm going to tell you finally one of these days with a specific black 928 GT, but we'll get to that. This one, there's a couple of things that stand out. Number one, I have never seen one made up to be a track car. Like this guy, it's stripped on the inside, basically the racing seat, the shifter, and the steering wheel, that's it. And then the guy came down from Canada, all the way from Canada to drive it here at Thunderhill. And it's funny, I think the Hyundai PR people have deliberately hidden this thing behind the paddock. And you probably have seen, what, like 10 episodes of this from this very event. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that found this. And I just, like I said, I couldn't leave well enough alone. Now as we come to the front straight again, let's discuss composure here. You know, we'll do an episode at home with composure on road, but look at this. I'm over 100 miles an hour in a Hyundai. Granted, I've got this thing set up in the N mode. Everything is completely stiff. There's no reason to discuss eco mode at this point, especially on a track. But here's where composure plays a huge role. Let's try the wrong line here, okay? And notice I'm changing the plane of motion, and I don't feel like a pitch, squat, dive, or roll, even when I'm doing things the wrong way, like shifting at the wrong point or slowing down in the turn the wrong way. It's amazing what they've done in one generation. As we get to the back part of the track again, I'm going to pose a question here. Is all this goodness just luck in their first go with a performance car, or is it 30 years of a brain trust from Germany that's been luckily transferred to a car company in South Korea? I'll let you make the call based on what you see. So we need to pick up a couple of points from the tech review. Remember the wheels and tires we talked about, two different flavors on offer, an 18 and 19. Well, it goes a bit deeper than that, and there's some theory behind it. So Albert and the folks behind the whole thing here, their focus was very much a daily driver, a car you're going to use every day. So the concept was, yeah, let's put better brakes, better tires on it, but let's make some choices here. So the basic, those 18-inch wheel cars, that is a Michelin Pilot Super Sport. But then if one were to go with a performance pack, it changes to a Pirelli P0 with their own rating that Hyundai came up with Pirelli to make the tire usable both on the track and the street, and frankly to make it somewhat affordable. But then there is an accessory tire that is on offer to the dealers, and it's this Trofeo R, which this car is fit with. And then the brakes. So you know how we talk about all these cars that come with Brembo brakes, and that's lovely. But Albert, and this guy, I mean, he ran BMW M for many, many years, so he understands very expensive parts. And the concept was, can we take some of the learning from Brembo, or some of really the targets that Brembo hits, but make a brake that's cheaper to maintain? So basically, if you need to change out the rotors, they're not as expensive as a Brembo. Well, there was one compromise they really couldn't make. They had to make a change in that if you wanted to use the car during like a track event, there is accessory track pads, so brake pads that are specifically for the track that one could buy at a Hyundai dealer that are specific for these N brakes. So definitely some interesting thinking went through this, not just about money and not just about performance, but a little balance of both. Okay, so it stands to reason if they have a car here with those fancy Pirelli Trofeo R tires, why the hell not try it? So we just switched up cars from the regular performance pack car with the 19s and the Pirelli P0s. This is the car with the Trofeo tires. And here's where the big difference is. I can push it in a turn like this much more aggressively, and yeah, I get a bit more lean, but the adhesion is amazing. And this is where the tire manufacturer working in conjunction with the car manufacturer makes that big of a difference. Like, how many times have you bought a car and you're thinking you're going to use it as a track car, and then all of a sudden you change the rubber, it's like a brand new car. This is not quite to that level. It's not a brand new car. It just sharpens the experience a bit more because it raises your handling limits. But here's the question. You change the tires from the dealer, you change the pads from the dealer. How many of you would actually do that in a Hyundai? Or really in your track car? How many of you have, think of that as like an additional question here. Would you spend the 30 grand and then I'm assuming at least 1,500, 2 grand on the tires, and then around another couple $100 for the, I'm just guessing on, so let's call it 2 grand. Would you pay that to make it more of a track car? Meanwhile, back at the hangar, a couple more things you and I need to unpack. First is a topic I never like to discuss, especially in cases where the only option on offer, at least currently, is one with 3 pedals. Kudos to them on that. However, I did speak to Albert, and he confirmed they are indeed working on a dual clutch version of the Veloster N. Can I fault him for that? No, they are in the business of making money and selling cars. However, he did confirm a couple of interesting things. Number one, they're not just going to take the 7-speed dual clutch that was designed, engineered, and built in-house by Hyundai. It's currently in all of like those eco versions of the Kias and Hyundais we've driven over the past couple of years, and just beef it up. Instead, what they're doing is building something from scratch that can handle the power and torque of the Veloster N, or really anything else that comes down the pike. But really, they're trying to hit some targets in gear change speeds, as well as durability, because obviously they want people to use it hard as well as on the track. Okay, that is what, 2 years away, he did say. Now that we have all that out of the way, what do we have with the Veloster N? And I expected rolling into this Jahzzar at a discount that one could sort of take on the track, and it's not that. What it is an incredibly fun daily driver, like way more fun than I expected. It, yes, out of the box can go on the track, and with an investment of money, can be very capable on a track. And the interesting part about the investment of the money that others are not doing is Hyundai Kia, really Albert, and his team, they have engineered the parts in-house to make it capable on the track. That's where I feel the Veloster N has a different strategy, at least not just Veloster, but the whole N thing is a bit of a different strategy because they're trying to make the parts affordable rather than breaking the bank. That brings us to money. Since I shot on the track, Hyundai released the pricing, and it is in the high 20s, at least US dollars, and not $29,995, but like solidly in the high 20s. So comparably equipped against the Jahzzar, yes, it has one less door, it's about a 10 grand US delta. So if it were me, I would focus on this being the super fun daily driver it was designed to be, and then take that 10 grand and go and buy and build a purpose-built track car. Now, we have to cover one more thing. There are two things that I don't like that have been very clear about throughout these two episodes, and that is the lack of choices of color on the interior, and then no sunroof. Like, really? This is a great driving car for the street that I'd love to take out on the weekend. Please give me the option of, like, I can open the roof or at least a glass roof. I mean, come on, now you got it in a regular car. It's not like the tooling has to be redone. So instead of me leaving you with the question of what would you choose, this or the Jahzzar or something else, I'm going to leave you with a request to go on a mission with me. You see, Hyundai is an interesting place in that I've gotten to know the guy who is the product manager of this car, and he's the guy that makes the decision of whether there's a different color on the interior and whether or not there is a sunroof. His name is Mike E, and I actually did feature his car, personal car, on this show last year. So, Mike E, I would like you guys to reach out to him via the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV Home Word, MotoManTV Home Word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And what I'm looking for is, think of it as like a love note. Don't get angry at the man. Say, dear Mike, we would love it if we could have a Veloster N with a sunroof. And while you're at it, maybe a different color interior. At least give us that choice. We'd be greatly appreciative. I'm really more focused on that sunroof thing. And I promise you I will take all of your comments, whether they're here on YouTube or elsewhere in our ecosystem of distribution or on social media, and I will share every last one of them with Mike E, because I know he's looking forward to it. So in the interim, I'm going to say, if you're seeing this on premiere day, tomorrow I will be taking that 951 944 to Radwood here in LA at the Peterson Automotive Museum, which I am pretty certain that Mike is going to be at. So if you leave your comments early, I'll share them with him tomorrow, depending on when you see that. Anyway, whether I see you at Radwood or through another episode, bis später.